Peter King, NBCSports.com, and of course his great column, Football Morning in America. Peter joins us now. Peter, what kind of elements do you think we'll take out of this virtual draft that we'll implement maybe next year in Cleveland?
Dan, I wouldn't be surprised to see the NFL still use a lot of draftees in their homes. Maybe bring fewer big stars to Cleveland, and instead of having all of the stars come to Cleveland, I think there's a really good chance that they sort of merge the two ideas. Whatever Trevor Lawrence, chest bumping with Roger Goodell, and then maybe all the guys beyond pick 25 or whatever, you see that drama at home. Like, to me, the two things out of this draft that people will never forget is, and look, I had 5 general managers between Saturday and Sunday who, 2 of whom really did not like this. Okay. Entering, 2 weeks ago. Even Mickey Loomis, who didn't like it, told me that it's a memory his kids will never forget. And to have so many key NFL people have their kids draped on them when they're making the picks. I mean, it probably will never happen again, but you know what, Dan, maybe it should.
Whose team's strategy do you have a hard time wrapping your head around right now?
Well, I mean, I didn't love the Packers, but not necessarily for the Jordan Love reason. I didn't love the Packers because whatever you think of the future of Aaron Rodgers, let's leave that to the side. Dan, in the last 6, this is the second draft in a row where they didn't take a wide receiver, okay? It is the 6th draft in a row where they did not take a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds. And in all 6 of those seasons, they did not spend free agent money on a big wide receiver. So they basically are doing to Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, what Bill Belichick did to Tom Brady last year, saying, hey, listen, you're a great player. Win it. You and Josh McDaniels, go figure it out. And, to me, this is about a franchise that, in my opinion, the game is changing. You need explosion. Look at what the Denver Broncos are doing. Look at their receiving core. It's utterly fantastic. And that is the way the game is going right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are providing a blueprint for everybody.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, trying to understand this. The reason why I don't like the Jordan Love pick more than anything is I got the financial aspect of this with Aaron Rodgers. He's tied up for 4 years, and you want that rookie contract at the quarterbacking position. All of these teams that, Wentz and Goff and Baker Mayfield, I mean, all these Daniel Jones, they're all put in there to start so they can take advantage of that contract. By the time Jordan Love gets ready to play, if he does get ready to play in Green Bay, it might be 4 years down the road. You're not able to take advantage of that rookie contract.
I think Jordan Love's got a decent chance to be the next Garoppolo. And, if you look at the way this could go, let's say Aaron Rodgers sort of views this as, just like Brett Favre did, quite honestly, as I'll show them,
Yeah.
and let's say he views it as that when he reports whenever this season is played, if it is, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see that unless Rodgers gets hurt, I think it's going to be very hard for him to come off the field in the next 3 years. I talked to GM Brian Gutekunst yesterday, and I asked him that same question. This guy, I mean, Rodgers told me a year and a half ago he wants to play till he's 40 if his legs are sound. And so that's 4 more years then. And if he plays 4 more years, how are the Packers going to be able to know whether they should exercise that 5th-year option? And I asked that to Gutekunst, and he said, if Aaron plays great for the next 4 years, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing him, that would be great for the Packers.
Yeah, but Pete, I would rather have a motivated Aaron Rodgers with some wide receivers.
Of course. Yeah, I get it.
Oh.
And you know what? I'll tell you what. If I take Jordan Love right there, you know what I do? I trade a lot to move up either high in the second round or even back up low in the first, even if it means next year's one. I trade a lot to get Michael Pittman or T. Higgins. or whoever. The Packers are a very smart personnel team. I would trust them to look at their draft board in the greatest year for wide receivers in the draft, maybe ever. But I think they've got to come out of this draft with one this year.
Your favorite team in the draft?
Pardon me, that's Chuck the dog. He must hear somebody at the door, Dan, here in Brooklyn.
Uh,
Chuck, my favorite team.
yeah.
I'll say two. I'm going to give you two quick ones. Number one, San Francisco,
Yeah.
because John Lynch gets thrown this hand grenade. Hey, by the way, Joe Staley, all-decade player, he's not playing this year. Not only does he need a defensive tackle and a wide receiver in this draft, he now needs, an offense, a left tackle. So he makes the trade for Trent Williams, and he gets Kinlaw as the defensive tackle, and they love Brandon Ayuk, so they draft him. So I really like what they did, and look, it's a little bit selfish, but I think what the Bucks did was really cool. First of all, Tampa Bay general manager Jason Light let me into his virtual draft room, and I witnessed their first round, and they chased and chased and chased, and finally got the right tackle for Tom Brady, Tristan Wirfs. The most interesting thing about that, Dan, when I witnessed that, technology helped them do their jobs. They were not detoured from doing anything because they all weren't in the same draft room.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I felt because we had some analysts who were, they were projecting there'd be a lot of trades in the first round. And then I wondered if because of the technology, because of how the draft was a virtual draft, that would make it harder to pull off these deals. You're saying that wasn't the case with Tampa?
I don't think it was. Now, last year there were 41 trades in the draft. This year there were 33. So maybe some teams were a little spooked by it, but I can tell you that that Jason Light, the GM of the Bucks, or his personnel guys, called every team from 7 and beyond and tried to get that pick because they were all set in. They were focused in on getting a right tackle for Tom Brady, and that was Tristan Wirfs. They thought he was the best right tackle in the draft. So every time they called, it wasn't because there wasn't enough time on the clock or it was awkward or anything like that. They had plenty of time. They never came close. Now, when they finally reported the pick, there was only 45 seconds left, but so what? That's plenty of time to get a pick in.
He's Peter King, NBCSports.com, and the column is Football Morning in America. Jalen Hurts being selected says more about Carson Wentz or trying to find the next Taysom Hill?
I would say neither. I'd say neither. In my opinion, that is simply a recognition of the fact that on some teams, when you don't have a solid rock 16 game every year starter, and Carson Wentz has missed 7 games one year, 6 games the next year in 17 and 18. So he's not been a solid rock. Maybe he'll turn out to be Phil Simms. After a lot of injuries early, he becomes that solid rock guy. He isn't right now. This is about, on a team like Philadelphia, the backup quarterback. It's not the same for every team, but the backup quarterback on the Philadelphia Eagles is one of the 10 most important people on the team. That's a fact. If you don't have a good backup quarterback and your quarterback gets hurt, your season's over. So having Nick Foles was a huge boon to them in 17 and 18. He won them a Super Bowl, and they didn't have that unless you think that, untested backups, like Kyle Lauletta are going to be really good, but you don't know that. And that's why, to me, getting Hurts is a smart move for the Eagles.
When you look at camps being opened up, what has to happen between now and whatever that date is before, if the NBA comes back, is that going to help out with I know there's far more players with the NFL, but what kind of, precautions are going to have to be put in place before you can actually have teams get together?
One of the toughest things for the NFL whenever the NFL starts, whether it be training camp, practice, whatever, is, are they going to feel good about taking all of these tests from somewhere? When America is crying out, when the doctors and governors and mayors say, we want to do more testing, what's it going to be like if every week, every NFL team, let's just say, uses 500 tests to make sure that they can keep the train on the tracks and keep going? And that's just a wild guess. I would think that they'd have to test their players, all their players and important staff once or twice a week at least. And so are they going to be comfortable in taking thousands of tests from training camp and into the regular season, away from the larger populace?
Yeah, I think we got a long road here, certainly with that. But I could see where
Say the least.
the quarterbacks all get together. You could have a virtual quarterback room where you could actually have these. Joe Burrow could get together with his quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator. I don't know if Andy Dalton's still in the mix there. By the way, Andy Dalton and Cam Newton now more likely to find a home with the draft being over, or are we going to have to wait until closer
I
to
don't
the
know.
season?
I mean, there's still a problem with Cam Newton. You know, teams they want to meet him up front, talk to him. They want to have their doctors be able to get their hands on him. So that's to me unanswerable right now. Dalton is a different story. He doesn't have an injury history, so but who knows? But the one thing about your prior point, Dan, I asked Zach Taylor, because I talked to him over the weekend and I talked to Burrow. How weird will it be let's say the season starts on October 1st, and how weird would it be if Joe Burrow meets AJ Green on Labor Day weekend? If he meets T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, if he meets all of his guys he's going to have to, sing beautiful music with. But I'll just say this for all the people who say, well, he won't play this year, they better play Andy Dalton. I mean, maybe they will. But I will also say this. Russell Wilson, 19 days after he practiced for the first time with Wisconsin, whatever year that was, 2011, I think it was, is playing football games and winning Big Ten games for them. Cam Newton didn't have an off-season program with the Carolina Panthers, practiced for 5.5 weeks, and then threw for 400 yards in his first game. It's not impossible. All I'm saying is that it's going to be weird. And also, Dan, how about this? Joe Burrow, Ohio. Joe Burrow cannot work out at Athens High School, his high school alma mater. His dad coached at Ohio University. He can't work out there either. So he's going to have to work out at just a field, maybe even in his backyard, outside of Athens. He's going to have to find a field to throw to. And Zach Taylor, I'm not sure he was kidding. He said, hey, he might have to work with his mom and dad. Dan, I find this one of the most interesting times, maybe the most interesting time of my sports writing career, because there is so much happening that if you had told me that you were going to be watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first round of the draft on my iPhone from an iPad put in the room, and that's going to be the huge thing in your post-draft column. That's insane. And so that's the kind of stuff that I just find so incredibly interesting right now.
Well, there's nothing going on, but there's everything going on.
Yes, right? That's an excellent way to put it.
Pete, great to talk to you. Great column as well. Great insights. We appreciate your time. And say goodbye to Chuck for us.
All right. Hey, Chuck, Dan says goodbye.
Does he bark on cue?
No, he just barks if he hears the slightest noise.
Does Chuck do any tricks, Peter?
Yes, he begs very well. And he begs 24/7.
Yeah, but
we don't really love it here in the King household.
Yeah, but I've been to dinner with you, Pete. You do the same thing.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Peter. That's Peter King. Peter King, NBCSports.com, the Football Morning in America column.